I am excited today to welcome Josh Hanson from Casa Shalom in Guatemala. Josh, if you would.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah.
Good morning. Now, I am from Minnesota, and I grew up in the Church of God. But in Minnesota, the Church of God, we're all converted Lutherans. So it's much tamer. It's much quieter. If one person raises their hand during praise and worship, we're going to talk about them that week. So we would always get nervous when a guest preacher would show up and he'd have a towel, because we knew it was about to get crazy. I don't know if it'll make you happy or if it'll disappoint you, but it's not about to get crazy. I'm just fat and it's hot in Florida. So this Thursday will mark 14 years since my wife and I went on the mission field. 14 years since a couple of kids that had just graduated college 5 weeks beforehand volunteered to go out and help at an orphanage. We were going to help in the school that was at the orphanage. And from the time we graduated until the time we went, there was 5 weeks, and we went to 5 churches. And this was one of those churches 14 years ago. And you guys have been by our side and partnered with us ever since. And a whole lot has changed. And now we have kids of our own, and the ministry has changed, and it's grown and all these things. But through all that time, you guys have been with us. And one of the things about orphan care is that it's not always the most exciting thing. It's raising kids. And if I were to ask you, what was the best part of your Thursday with your children? Sometimes the best you can hope for is to say, well, my kids didn't kill each other and I didn't kill them. My wife drove on Tuesday 9 hours to be at a state convention with our 2 kids in the car. And when I called her that night and said, how's it going? She said, I'm looking for the nearest fire department. I'm going to drop the children off there. But you know what? I'd love for you to meet my personal children. They're wonderful, intelligent, bright kids who, most importantly, love Jesus. And that's what it's like at Casa Shalom. Every day may not be the most exciting thing in the world, but we're raising children to be world changers. We're raising children to be wonderful men and women of God that can go out into their community and change one of the most violent nations in the world into Christ followers. And you guys have partnered with us through that for the last 14 years. And so first, I just want to say thank you so much. You have been tremendous friends and tremendous blessing to us and to the children of Casa Shalom. So I want to start the presentation today. It'll be a little mix of catching you up if you're unfamiliar with us, and then an update on those for those of you that are familiar with us. So if we could show our family photo there. There we go. That's the family of Casa Shalom. And as the director of Casa Shalom, my wife and I are the legal guardians of all of these children. There's 2 of them that look like us and a whole lot that don't. And a lot of people ask us what it's like to have 75 children. It's a little chaotic sometimes to have 75 children. Just ask Pastor Rodney. One of my favorite stories to tell, the big tree that's in the middle of the house there that you see. I was finishing up lunch one day, and I was washing some dishes, and we have this window that overlooks the property, and there's this giant hill that's the top of, and there's this tree there. And I look out, and I see a couple of young men in that tree. And I notice that they have a rope tied in the tree. And as I look down the hill, I see that the rope goes down the hill. And then at the bottom of the hill, while the 10-year-olds are in the tree, there's a bunch of 8-year-olds at the bottom of the hill holding the rope. And I realize that our young men are attempting to make a zip line. So I step out of the house to the edge of the sidewalk there, and they freeze. And they look, because they know that if my wife is behind me, there's no homemade zip line. No more homemade zip line. However, my wife was not with me. So I nod in the affirmative. Please go ahead and make your homemade zip line, because I want to see how this goes. Because they're 10. They don't have any construction experience. They think if we can get enough 8-year-olds at the bottom of the hill to hold the rope, we'll be A-okay. Not to ruin it, but they weren't. So they look at me again. I nod. They pull a piece of rebar out of their pants that they'd hidden, put it on the rope. That's how they're going to slide. Take a leap of faith, snag that rope with the rebar, fall 10 feet to the ground, and yank all the 8-year-olds up the hill. When you have 75 kids, there's always some sort of shenanigans going on. Let's go to the next slide. Just a little bit of history of Casa Shalom. We did not start Casa Shalom when we went. Casa Shalom has been in ministry since 1986. There was a pair of American missionaries that were working in the country, and they started noticing all of these children that had been orphaned by the Guatemalan Civil War. So they started taking these kids into their home, ran out of space, bought the property that we're on, and started with 3 kids, and now we have 65. So, next slide. A little bit of information about Guatemala. If you're like me, you're bad at geography, Guatemala is just south of Mexico. If you're really like me and you're really bad at geography, Mexico, just south of America. Guatemala is about the size of Tennessee. There's 15 million people that live there. 24 official languages. 1 is Spanish. None of them are English. They're all Mayan indigenous languages that predate Columbus coming over, so they sound nothing like Spanish whatsoever. They're based on the letter Q and K, so a word will have 5 Q's, 4 K's, and an I. And you're just like, that's not enough vowels. There's 33 volcanoes in Guatemala. You can see 4 of them from our property. 2 of them erupt consistently, so you can just sit and watch the volcano erupt at night. It's quite beautiful. You used to be able to hike one of the volcanoes. My sister did that when she lived there for a while. She actually has photos cooking hot dogs over the lava. She hasn't been right since, but Guatemala is a country of have and have-nots. And so we have the 4th highest rate of chronic malnutrition in the world. We have the 3rd highest rate of helicopter ownership in the world. So you're either extremely rich or you're extremely poor. Diane Sawyer did a thing on, or a news report on malnutrition in Guatemala several years ago, and she compared the average size of a Guatemalan child who was 12 years old that lived in Guatemala and the average size of a 12-year-old child that was of Guatemalan descent but had been raised in the U.S. There's a 6-inch height difference in those kids. We also have the distinction of having the longest civil war in Latin American history. Lasted for 36 years. The Chiquita Banana Company started it. Thank you, Chiquita. When you're talking about civil wars in Latin American history, having the distinction of having the longest one is quite an accomplishment. Next slide. So how do kids come to Casa Shalom? So in Guatemala, there's no foster care. So for the same reason you end up in foster care in the U.S., you end up in an orphanage in Guatemala. So all of our kids are with us under court order. Some of those kids will be with us for 2 months, and some of those kids will grow up with us. The family that you see there is the Mejia Lush family. We had 8 of those kids. There's actually, I think, 14. But they came to us because their parents had attempted to sell them. And when they were unsuccessful in that, they abandoned the family. So the young lady that you see there was 12 years old, and she was raising all of those kids. The boys at that point were 6, 7, and 8, and they were going out into the coffee fields every day to try to pick 80 pounds of coffee for $6. They'd never been to school. They were all born at home. There was no official record of them ever existing. They didn't have enough time to gather firewood. They didn't have the skills to take care of themselves, so they were surviving on raw tortilla dough. When we got them, their hair had started to turn orange from malnutrition. But God had other plans for the Mejia Lush family. They came to Casa Shalom. They excelled at Casa Shalom. Their hair turned back to its beautiful natural color. They started in school. And it was amazing after 6-9 months to see the older ones begin to read. It was amazing to see them stand up in chapel and read the Bible verse for that day. The one that's being held by the 12-year-old is a girl named Magdalena. Magdalena, a couple years after she'd been with us, was playing in the baby house, and we have these big, giant wooden doors, and she shut the door, and her finger was in the hinge, and she severed her thumb. And her house mother brought her to us, and her thumb's dangling by a piece of skin. We prayed for her, and we sent her to the hospital, and they said, well, there's nothing we can do for her. We got to clip that skin. She's going to lose her thumb. And we said, that's not God's plan for Magdalena. So we took her to another hospital, and they said, well, we can sew her thumb back on, but we can't do anything about the blood vessels and all that sort of stuff. So in a couple of days, her thumb will turn black, and we'll have to cut it off. We said, well, that's better than cutting it off right now, so let's do that. So she was going to stay in the hospital for a couple of days, and we left her there with one of her house mothers. We went back to the orphanage, and I started to call my friends all around the world. And we put it out on Facebook. Facebook can be a cesspool, but it can also be an amazing ministry tool. And I contacted a friend of mine, and I told him the story, and he said, Josh, we're going to pray, and God is going to heal Magdalena. And I said, but the doctors say she's going to lose her thumb. And he said, Josh, that's not faith. Faith is you pray, and you expect the answer to the prayer. And I think so many times in the U.S., we have that mentality. We know we should pray, but the doctor says, but the lawyer says, but the accountant says, that's not faith. Faith is praying and believing that God is going to answer. So we prayed, and we went back to the hospital the next day. I said, Magdalena, how's your thumb? She held her hand up. It's fine. God miraculously attached that girl's thumb, because the same God that did miracles in the Bible 2,000 years ago is doing miracles today. And I wonder sometimes, how many miracles do we not see because we don't expect them? We don't pray with the expectation that the miracle comes. Next slide. Casa Shalom, we have 3 main goals. First goal is to meet the basic needs of all of our children. So many of our kids come to us, at best, they're eating 1 meal a day. So we serve them 3 nutritious meals a day. Medical care at our clinic. We have a dentist office at our clinic. That's a new blessing that we've received since I was last here. We had somebody contact us on Facebook, and they said, Josh, we heard about you, and we're going to be in Guatemala. We have family in Guatemala. Was wondering if we could come visit the orphanage. We said, yeah, sure, we'll set up a tour. So one of our secretaries gave them a tour. And at the end of it, they said, we were talking to your secretary, and they mentioned that one of the needs you have is dental care, because a lot of our kids come to us, they've never brushed their teeth before. So they're 8, 10, 12 years old, they've never brushed their teeth before, so their teeth are, rotting. And we said, yeah, there's free dental care in Guatemala, but a lot of times the hospitals run out of the pain medication. So if you're willing to get your teeth pulled, with no anesthesia, no Novocaine, you can do that. But that doesn't really work well with kids. And he said, well, how would you feel if we built you a dental clinic? And then our family, one of our nephews is a dentist, and he's volunteered to come once a week to your orphanage and do dental care. How would you feel about that? I said, well, okay. And then I got a little nervous, like, well, maybe this guy just sort of has a big mouth and he wants to help, but I don't know this guy. I wonder if he can actually do this. So I looked him up. It turns out he designs flooring, more specifically sports flooring. He designed the flooring and put the flooring in Madison Square Garden, the Staples Center in LA, and about half the basketball arenas in the NBA. So So it turns out he definitely had the money to build us a clinic. And now our kids have free dental care. We also provide all the clothing for our kids, obviously. That's mostly provided by teams that come down and visit. It's pretty amazing when you get a kid off the street to bring them into our clothing storage area. And it's just sort of like a tiny shop with all the different donations that we've received. And kids, for the first time in their life, can go out and decide, like, hey, this is my style. Hey, I like those shoes. It's one of those things that, like, in America, we always do, and you never really think about it. But to see the look on a child's face when they get, like, 2 pairs of underwear, it's amazing. And then we divide the kids up by age and gender into the houses. So we have 6 houses that they're divided up into by age and gender. Next slide. The next goal is to provide a quality education. In Guatemala, a third of people are illiterate. So if you can read, you're at an advantage over 1/3 of the population. If you get a high school degree, even more so. So we put our kids in school. If you can actually pray for our kids are just now, in the next couple of weeks, going to go back to school full time. So since the pandemic started, they've been studying online for the first year, and then a year and a half, and then this year, they've been going 2 days a week or 3 days a week. And so just now are they getting back to full time. So just pray for them as they transition back into class. They're very excited. Our house moms are much more excited. But they're going to start that in the next couple of weeks. We have tutoring, and then we also allow our kids to go to university. So just like foster care here in the U.S., our responsibility to the children ends at 18, and if they choose, they can leave. But if they want to stay, we pay for them to go to college. And so that's actually something that Pastor has decided to partner with us on. This church is going to be sending our 2 kids that we have in college right now. It costs a little bit over $100 a month to send them. You're going to be sending our 2 kids to college. And then next year, we had 3 more kids, so you're going to be sending 5 kids to college. So I'd love for you guys to give yourself a hand for that. That is an incredible blessing, changing lives. Next slide. The most important thing, though, is that we raise successful Christians. So we have Christian house mothers and house fathers that live with them, that do daily devotions with them. We do Wednesday and Sunday church services in our chapel that sits up on top of the hill overlooking Guatemala City. All the walls are glass. It overlooks Guatemala City, overlooks the volcano, it overlooks a lake surrounded by God's nature. But we also partner with missions. So every year, when our kids are out of school, from November to January, we pick a missions project. And we do garage sales where our kids bring their toys and their clothes and sell them. We do bake sales where our kids bake stuff in our bakery and sell it in the community. They do extra chores. The last time we did this, our kids did about 1,200 hours of chores to raise funds. And then we send that money around the world. We've donated to drug rehabilitation centers in the Dominican Republic. We've donated to house building projects in Cambodia, because while my kids may not be up on the most current American pop culture, there are things they understand in this world. They understand what it's like to be hungry. They understand what it's like to have a parent that's an addict. They understand what it's like not to have a home. And so these things grip their hearts and touch their hearts. Casa Shalom has been a missions project since 1986. People have faithfully supported Casa Shalom since then. We receive no money from the government to house these kids. They love giving us regulations, but no money. The only way we exist is because people all over this world support our children. But I don't want to teach my kids to stand there with their hands out, because that's not the biblical model. The biblical model is that we send across the street and around the world. And so I want to raise successful Christians. And to do that, our kids need to be a part in giving to missions. Next slide. We also have a life skills program. We've had pigs, we've had chickens, we've had rabbits, we've had turkeys. Our kids help raise all of those things They help butcher all of those things. You're looking at a delicious dinner right there. Roasted lechon. We have a carpentry shop in the country of that's about 3,000 square feet. It was all shipped here by a donor in the States, all of the equipment. I had this idea that I was going to build a carpentry shop. I thought, man, this is like one of those teach people to fish sort of things. It's a great idea. Teach kids a skill. I didn't pray about it because I thought it was such a great idea. And I raised enough money to dig the foundation of the building. It was 35 dump trucks worth of dirt that we took out. And then the funding dried up. What I discovered when you have 70 kids is that having a giant hole in the ground is significantly more dangerous than not having a giant hole in the ground. And what I discovered was that while my wife and I and a great team and a great staff work extremely hard for Casa Shalom, the Casa Shalom, I didn't discover it just with this. It's an ongoing lesson, but Casa Shalom, we are not responsible for Casa Shalom. Casa Shalom is the Lord's work. James 1:27 says the only religion that's pure and holy is the one that takes care of the widows and the orphans. God takes care of his children, and he's never let us down. And so I began to pray about this, and I said, Lord, forgive my arrogance. Forgive me for thinking that I can do this on my own. I've learned this so many times, Lord, already, that without you, I can't make this happen. And a week later, a team came down, and I was giving them a tour of the property, and I showed them this giant hole in the ground. And while I had realized at this point that I needed the Lord's help, gotta tell you, I was still a little salty about it. So I said, this is our carpentry shop. Right now it's just a giant hole. If anyone would like to give me $25,000, we could finish this, and my embarrassing story could be over. Not a great sales pitch. A guy pulled me aside later and he said, God spoke to my heart and he told me to give you that money. So now we have a carpentry shop. Because when you put things in God's hands, it goes a whole lot better than when you do it yourself. We also have a bakery on site. We partnered with the government, and they come out and teach our kids to bake. And they actually license them as professional bakers. So I have a whole bunch of 16-year-olds looking for a job, if anybody wants to start a bakery in Guatemala. Next slide. So that's what Casa Shalom is about. And some of you, if you've been to Casa Shalom, or if you've, remember some of these stories, you maybe have met Edwin. Edwin recently graduated from Casa Shalom. Edwin came to us. He's from the mountains in Guatemala. And his dad said when he was about 6 years old, I'm going to send you to live with your uncle in Guatemala City. So you're going to get on a bus. You're going to go about 6 hours down in the capital. Your uncle will be there at the bus depot. Edwin gets on a bus, drives into the city, gets off the bus. There's no uncle. Uncle doesn't exist. His dad didn't want to raise him. So the police picked up Edwin. He came to live with us. And he thrived. He did well. And he got to the end of his high school career. And we said, Edwin, what do you want to study? We'll send you to school. Anything you want to be, tell me. He goes, Josh, thought about it. I really feel like I should be a DJ. Well, buddy, I lied. Not anything you want. How about some like media art type thing? So Edwin went to school, learned photography and videography. Edwin did well, graduated, left Casa Shalom, successful Christian young man. Went and started doing photography, got some recognition for it. Started working with some bigger companies and some bigger companies. got some more recognition. And a couple of years ago, Justin Bieber came to town and do a concert. He was doing some nonprofit work. He did a tour of some different nonprofits. Guess who they hired to be his photographer? That's the other reason I have this. The little boy whose family didn't want him is now riding around Guatemala working with one of the biggest music stars in the world. As he connects with those nonprofits, they go, I really like your work. Why don't you do some work for us? So now Edwin travels Central America, sharing the story, collecting the photos and the videos, and sharing the stories of amazing nonprofit work all over Central America. Raising awareness, raising funds, providing for kids the opportunity to have their lives changed just as his life was changed. Doing exactly what we hope for Casa Shalom, that these kids leave as Christian young men and women, and they go out into their community, and they help change it for the better in a way that my wife and I as Americans could never do. That's what Casa Shalom is about. Changing kids' lives, teaching them about Jesus, and releasing them to go change the world. Next slide. So you're already involved, but what can we do? You can pray. Have 70 kids. These house moms are incredible. But like our teenage girls' house has like 17 teenage girls that live in it. Anyone that has 17 teenage girls needs all the prayer that they can possibly get. We've taken in a couple of babies over the last few months. So now our wonderful house moms who raise our babies and toddlers, the 4 of them who have a dozen babies and toddlers in the house, they got 2 kids now that aren't sleeping through the night. One young man who we're working, to try to, taking him to doctors, trying to get him better, his kidneys are almost blown out. Because before he came to Casa Shalom, his mother was exclusively feeding him Coke, like Coca-Cola in a bottle. So this infant was living on Coca-Cola and blew his kidneys out. He's most likely going to need a kidney transplant. As you can imagine, he doesn't sleep well. He's having to learn how to drink milk because he's not used to it. So these wonderful house moms are up all hours of the night with a crying, uncomfortable, hungry baby. So pray for them. And then you guys have partnered with us for years, and I thank you for that. And I ask that you continue to do so. Next slide. Last story I'll share is the story of Yamileth, Ariel, and Dominica. Yamileth, Ariel, and Dominica came to us years ago. Their mother was a prostitute who would kick them out onto the streets of Guatemala City while she worked from home. And Guatemala City is one of the most dangerous cities in the world. We have top 5 murder rate of children, top 5 murder rate of women, and she would kick them out while she worked. They'd never been to school, and they were surviving on tortillas with salt. And their mother got a new boyfriend. And he said, you can take care of me or you can take care of your kids. So Yamileth, Ariel, and Dominica's mother went to family court, and she gave up Yamileth and Ariel. She kept Dominica because Dominica was her baby. And so we got Yamileth and Ariel, and they came to Casa Shalom, and they thrived. Their hair turned back to its beautiful black color. They went to school. They did well. It was the first time they'd ever had 3 meals in a day. It was the first time they'd ever had a bed. It was the first time they weren't in danger every single day. But every single day, they were worried about their baby sister. Every single day, they knew that while they were doing well, Dominica was still in danger. And so we prayed, God, do something so that we get Dominica. After about 6 months, we got a call. It was family court. Their mom was in family court. She had broke her leg, so she couldn't work. So she was giving up Dominica. Now, I don't know if God is in the business of breaking people's legs. I looked in the Old Testament, which is probably where you'd find it. Couldn't find it. But our prayers were answered, and Dominica was reunited with her family. And so I want to close with a video of the night that they were reunited. The night that for the first time in their lives, they knew that the 3 of them were safe, that they had people that cared about them, they had a roof over their head, food in their stomach, the chance to get an education, and the chance to hear about Jesus Christ. And that's possible because of churches like you that have partnered with us for so long. So thank you so much for helping us reunite families like this and for helping us change the world. God bless. Man, that was set up so well.
Video is not working, but he painted a wonderful picture. I'll tell you, if he can't, I'll stall for just a minute to see if they can get it. And if he can't, then I will get it, and we will post it to our social media or wherever we can so that you can see it. We'll show it. But while they're doing that, it's not really stalling because I did want to share with you guys. I told you earlier how of 400 Church of God congregations in the state of Florida that we were in the top 10, and that's you guys. That's you guys giving. It's your commitment, and I am a strong believer in supporting missionaries and things like this around the world. Just to put a number on it, so you're aware, from January 1st of 2021 until December 31st of 2021, you gave over $100,000 to missions. And some may say, well, wow, we sure could have used that $100,000 around here. Yes, there are a lot of things that we could have done with $100,000. But you know what we have? We have an air conditioner that works. We have one that doesn't, but it's going to be fixed. But we have air conditioners that work. You have seats that are padded. You have video and sound. And even though right now there's a glitch with it, it works most of the time. And we are blessed right here. Definitely worth it. And it's stories like that are the reasons that we continue to partner and we continue to give. So it's a thank you. I wanted to bring Josh in. We spent this past week together at camp meeting, and he was at the missions booth, and I got to spend some time with him there. But one of the other things that he mentioned with the college program, he told me a few months back that 25% of the residents of Guatemala are illiterate. And so one of the programs that they have is this college program that gives them a trade. It gives them something that they can learn. And as you saw the story of the young man who went through a similar program and is now doing wonderfully, traveling Central America, using the gift that God gave him. We are excited to partner to send 5 of their students through, those that are in now and then the 3 that are going to be entering into that program. Because what that does is it's more than just something extra for them to do. It teaches them a skill. It gives them something that they can become productive people in society, and it fulfills Casa Shalom's mission. So that they are not just hanging on to kids until they turn 18, but they are releasing ministers into the world to make it a better place, a better community. And once more, thank you so much for how you've partnered and how you will continue to do so as we maintain this 14-plus year relationship now and continue to see God do some amazing things.